an autistic person is so logical and analytical, sometimes not taking in, sometimes when you're making decisions about your family, it's not always logical, analytical, or business. There's people's feelings and relationships and how will this impact this child and how will this impact that child. And so we would get in a lot of arguments when he would say I was using emotional logic and not real logic. And so that could cause some relationship issues.
Just a little bit. I love that.
Yeah.
You're not using real logic. Welcome to Crazy Little Thing Called Marriage. I'm Dr. Greg Smalley.
And I'm Erin Smalley. Today's program is one that listeners have been asking for quite some time.
Yeah, they really have.
So along with all the other fun marriage topics that we cover, we discuss, we're going to be talking about how you can help your marriage thrive when your spouse is on the spectrum, on the autism spectrum. We're also going to talk about ways you and your spouse can plan your future together. We'll give you an idea that'll open the doors of communication. That sounds pretty fun.
Yeah, that warms your heart, just phrasing it like that.
Yes.
Yeah, so even if your spouse isn't on the spectrum, if that's not an issue that you guys face, trust us. As we have this conversation, there are so many beautiful takeaways, no matter what's going on within your marriage. So stay tuned. You're going to want to listen.
Yes.
Because there's just some really helpful marriage advice.
Yes. According to the CDC, there are approximately 5.4 million adults in the U.S. that are dealing with autism. 5.4 million.
Yeah, a lot.
And research suggests that diagnoses of adults are increasing, with the most significant rise in those ages from 26 to 34 years old.
Yeah.
So there's a big spike in diagnoses of those on the autism spectrum.
Yeah, which is why you have been asking for us to really cover this topic. And there's a lot of just interesting statistics and facts and things that, as we've really dug into this, have really stood out to me.
Yes, marriage rates among autistic adults are lower than the general population, but estimates range from about 9% to 35% of autistic adults being married, compared to around 50% in the general population. So that's interesting.
Yeah.
It's a lower rate of actually pursuing marriage.
Not too different.
However, more autistic adults are marrying now than in previous decades.
Yeah.
So I wonder what is influencing that.
Why do you think about like the show Love on the Spectrum.
Right.
You wonder how that's having a really positive impact.
Right.
Within couples who are dealing with that.
Yes. But something super interesting, Greg. Contrary to popular belief, divorce rates in marriages with one autistic spouse are not always higher than average. So
why
it's
do you
interesting.
think that is?
I don't know if there's a loyalty factor. Is it that they knew they were marrying someone with autism? Maybe they didn't know, and they find out, 20 years into the marriage that their spouse is actually on the autism spectrum.
Yeah.
And then a lot of things make sense. I don't know.
Yeah.
They say that it's actually around 23 to 35% when one is on the autism spectrum. So fascinating.
Yeah, that really is, especially because our country as a whole faces about a 40% divorce rate. So that's interesting. I know we do a lot of the premarital counseling at our church. So often we do that in groups. And I remember one time, one of the groups that I ran years ago, this was true for this couple. So he was on the spectrum. He was dealing with autism. And so they were doing a lot of work and really understanding that diagnosis and how it would probably impact them. But about a year into their marriage, they reached out to me. I was at church. They just came and said, hey, could we maybe take you out to coffee or something and just kind of talk? And yeah, let's do that. And so what stood out to me was that kind of there can often be, for someone dealing with autism, kind of pursuing that future spouse, it becomes like this special interest, like this is my task to win her, to win him. And they're really, really focused on that. And then once they get married, it's kind of like, check that one off the list, completion, and not really having ever thought through, well, wait, this is for a lifetime. I need to pursue my spouse for that entire life. And that's what they were dealing with. She was just feeling kind of like put on the shelf and just going, he was so attentive. He pursued me so well. I felt so valued, thinking, man, this is going to be our life together. And I'm always going to be pursued by him because he was just so focused on that task. And then once they got married, again, it wasn't his intent, but she was like, where did that guy go?
Right.
Because like, you're now ignoring me. And which again can be a common diagnosis within that neurodivergent relationship is that I pursued you, won you, now I'm moving on to the next thing. And it's nothing personal, but boy, that was really hurting her. And so it was so good to sit with him to talk that issue through and for him to really begin to think through, okay, what does this need to look like on an ongoing kind of lifelong pursuit? And it was great to understand his perspective,
right?
To go, yeah, why would I need to do that?
Yeah.
And yet getting, okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
And
so
then,
in essence, someone can learn and grow even when they maybe learn of a diagnosis that they fit the criterion, but there's hope because they absolutely can learn some different tools.
They really can. And that's what I love about our guests today is they're just so knowledgeable within a relationship that includes someone who's neurodivergent in the knowledge and the skills that you're about to hear were powerful. And so Dr. Stephanie and Dan Holmes are going to share a little bit about kind of their journey of discovering Dan's autistic kind of diagnosis. And they're going to give us some insights on how they've worked through things like communication and expectations and pursuing one another within their marriage. So both Stephanie and Dan are ordained ministers, and together they host a fantastic podcast called Neurodiverse Christian Couples. And we kind of started the interview asking about their origin story, kind of how they fell in love.
So super excited to hear about your relationship. Specifically, we hear that you guys met in childhood. So how did that go and what attracted you to each other?
You start.
Dan does not like our origin story. But we met in church. We grew up in the same church in Charlotte, North Carolina. And we met, I was 9, 10. He was 11, 12. I fell for him a little bit before he fell for me. So as a naive 10-year-old, I told him we were going to get married. And essentially he said the population of Earth would die out before we would ever get married.
So he wasn't jumping in right away.
No, he was not on board. But I was smitten early on.
But then obviously, right, something changed. So Dan, did the population die out, or what?
Yeah, what
happened? How did you guys end up together?
Maybe mentally they died out. Yeah, we go through a lot of back and forth in junior high, high school. By the time you get to college, and the world changed, I changed, she changed.
He matured.
He saw the light. Yeah.
I think we like to say that we were friends before we were lovers.
Yeah.
And that, I think that grew from one place to another. And by the time you get into late teens, it morphed into more than I could have ever imagined would have been true at the age of 10.
Yeah. Didn't quite have the vision for what was to come.
No, I was more interested in riding my bicycle outside and playing in the mud.
That's
than
right.
I was a girl.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And now you just have someone that you can play in the mud with. So that's the beauty of marriage and relationship. And I love that your story, Dan, as you put it, kind of started as you guys were friends and kind of built that base. So what, Stephanie, for you, like, when did you learn that Dan was on the spectrum?
We were 20 years into marriage almost. So at the time I was a trained licensed professional counselor. I'm no longer that, but I had learned about what was coming up as Asperger's syndrome, and the new diagnostic terminology. And I was told I'd never meet someone. You'd certainly never see them in therapy, and people on the spectrum don't get married. So it wasn't even a thought. until our eldest daughter got diagnosed in 2005, 2006 with what used to be called Asperger's syndrome. And the story of kind of finding out Dan was on the spectrum is throughout her identification process, Dan would say, well, I do that, or I think that way. And I would be really annoyed with him, thinking he was just pushing back. He was just pushing back on the label because he doesn't like labels. And so I went to this seminar on preparing your young adult on the spectrum for adulthood. And I reacted so much on my face, the speaker stopped and said, the lady in the second row has just figured out her husband is on the spectrum.
Wow. Oh, my word.
And I was like, wow. I never thought about that before. And so then we just started having conversations about it. But we were about 2 decades into marriage before we knew that.
Wow.
Wow. And Dan, how would you define neurodivergence in your own terms? And how do you find that this impacts your day-to-day life?
The second question is easier than the first. I'd probably butcher a definition of neurodivergence because I'll use all the wrong words and say normal and stuff like that. Yeah, I'll phrase it in a practical way and not a technical. She can give you a technical definition. I'll use the word permanent because of what I'll say later.
Okay.
A permanent difference in the way you view the world.
Okay.
Maybe a little more myopic, maybe just a lot different. Not wrong or better or less than, just different. Mm-hmm. And I use the word permanent because from living there, it is something you learn to do different. It's kind of like the resting place.
Yeah.
If I don't exercise some kind of different thinking pattern or behavior, that is the default place. It's, learning to be different automatically is perhaps how I would explain growing into something else. Your second question was, how does it affect? It was everything from communication to how do you participate in the daily life of a household? What is important from a priority perspective? How do I see through the eyes of someone else, or even know that there are eyes of someone else? Right? Blind theory of mind is one of the typical characteristics, and that's the ability to see the world through someone else's eyes. So that can look a lot like I don't understand the face I'm looking at. I don't actually present myself the face I'm actually feeling. So, you go to a comedy club and you never laugh and people think you don't like it. Well, you just never laughed. That didn't mean you didn't like it. It just it just wasn't one of those things you expressed verbally.
Okay.
That's I'll let you answer the technical question.
So I like to say neurodivergence is just it's a different way the brain is wired. And so in our definition, that could be ADHD, autism, learning differences, dyslexia, left-handedness, where the brain actually is wired in a different way. And some of the structures actually look a little bit different. But we do look at it as a neurological wiring thing. Like he said, different, not less than, but it certainly can impact social relationships for sure.
Yeah. So as you, Stephanie, think back to just, it was 20 years into your marriage until you were like both, whoa, this is what's going on. All right, that makes sense. How did maybe the neurodivergence, how did that show up within your marriage? Like, what were some of the challenges that as you guys look back on going, okay, now through this lens, oh yeah, this happened, it all makes sense now. But what were some of those big challenges you guys struggled with?
Big one is memory. Sometimes Dan not remembering things. And now it gets thrown around the word gaslighting, but with an autistic person, it's not gaslighting. You can have a conversation on Monday, you're going to do something on Saturday, and then Saturday they're getting in a car and driving off, and you're like, where are you going?
Yeah.
It's like, when you do the thing, it's like, wait, we had an agreement that we were
Yeah.
doing this other thing, and you're like, oh, you're gaslighting me. But if you truly didn't remember or you didn't come up with a strategy, so there was a lot of misunderstanding with things like that. And so I would be prone to be like, well, if you can't remember, you don't love me, kind of a thing. So if not important enough for you to remember. And then just communication, because an autistic person is so logical and analytical, sometimes not taking in, sometimes when you're making decisions about your family, it's not always logical, analytical, or business. There's people's feelings and relationships and how will this impact this child and how will this impact that child. And so we would get in a lot of arguments when he would say I was using emotional logic and not real logic. And so that could cause some relationship issues.
Just a little bit. I love that. You're not using real logic, just emotional logic.
So did some of these things impact your connection, and did it increase conflict within your relationship? How did you guys manage that?
I'm a very passionate person. Let's just say that.
It depends on which one of us you ask.
Yeah, exactly.
You could have shot my arm off and I probably wouldn't have noticed. So for a lot of that, it was, all right, I'll forget about it in 20 minutes. That just tends to be what happens. We've stopped talking about it. I'll take that as the end of the conversation, and I moved on.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think there's a phrase that she likes to use called tale of two marriages, and we lived a very different experience in that. Mine was a lot more placid, even-keeled, content, and hers
not so good.
Maybe more towards the not that.
Yeah.
We had two different experiences.
Yeah.
Meaning what? Like, so when you think back and not so good, what was going on that you were then personalizing, going, this is what this then means about me or means about our marriage? What did that look like?
Yeah, so I think key of kind of the heart of what's going on with autism is a social relational communication issue. And so marriage is the number one place you need social relational communication.
Yeah.
So
Heard
that
it
would
helps.
be the constant. Yeah. And if you don't have that connection, I think for us, one of the things that has always been a strength that not all couples have, like Dan said at the beginning, we were best friends before we got married.
Gotcha.
And so for me, I remember some of his childhood better than he does. So for me, I never made it a character issue. A lot of wives will make this a character issue. That was kind of the hurt. It's like, Dan is such a good person and a person of high character. Why does he keep hurting me this way? Why does he keep doing these things? And it was kind of a lot of cognitive dissonance for me on like what I'm seeing in experiences versus who I know him to be. And how come this was easier when we were friends and it got harder when we got married? That was kind of the stuff I had to really work through. And then we had to create strategies, right? Just because you're on the spectrum don't mean you get a pass to never follow through with your word. We're definitely not saying that. But when that's been happening for 20 years, that certainly causes a lot of trust issues. And then you've got to figure out your strategies to make it work for the two of you.
What do you think as you look back onto that? What kept you guys together? Because for a lot of couples, for, a lot of reasons that they won't put up with that or they go their separate ways. What do you guys feel like kept you guys together?
Well, since my side of it wasn't all of that struggling, I didn't have anywhere
You were
to
good.
go. So I was, frankly, I was fine. So as I wasn't looking to go anywhere and, so,
you were content.
Hers is a much different story.
It was much different for me.
Yeah.
I actually struggled a lot with not wanting to be in this world, much less be in the marriage
really?
during
Okay.
some of those times. It got really tough. And to be honest, what kept me here and in the marriage was we have two girls and both of them are neurodivergent. And so there was the mom brain that said, it's just better for y'all to be together and figure it out.
Leave him with that guy.
Well, that was some of that. I wasn't going to say that, but yes, that was some of the thinking. These two girls need their mom, and it's better for them to have an intact family. So it wasn't like a really good Christian reason because it's what God wanted. It was practical and what was best for the system.
Yeah.
So post-diagnosis, what changed for each of you? For you, Dan, you wrote about releasing some shame based on how you had shown up relationally. And I'd be curious from your perspective, Stephanie, as well, what changed?
So this question gets asked a lot, and I dance around it a lot because I don't really have a solid answer. There was a growth, I'll call it maturity. I don't have a better name for it, that happened way back. We'll call it seeds well into early marriage that spurred into more than. You probably didn't see emergence until 5-6 years ago. That's about how long that took to germinate. And it was that reality. It was the best I can give it is a awareness that there is more going on in the world than me. Um, it's a very difficult thing to, I've never been blind, but it would feel like trying to describe red to someone that's blind.
Wow.
It's a difficult thing to communicate what it's like to see the world and you think everybody feels what you feel, sees what you see, has your perspective, understands how you understand. And that's just your default place. You'd go into a room and you'd think everybody already knows what you know. So you'd start where you know. And that's not true. The recognition and learning to notice that frankly just isn't true. And you have to think about someone else is probably where it started. And the diagnosis for me was a little bit more anticlimactic than for some, right? I mean, we had been living that reality in awareness for probably 4 years before I officially got a diagnosis. So it was a gradual growing of other people's awareness, being aware of someone else's
skill
mind.
of empathy, which
Yes.
sounds like it's teachable. That's something that you've been learning how to do. And you're right. That's a powerful, powerful gift that we give each other is, what does life look like through your eyes and what's your experience versus being very aware of my own.
Right. And for someone that is really good at that, it's just as hard to understand what it's like to have no awareness of such a thing at all.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, because we use, like you were saying, Stephanie, I mean, we use these terms like gaslighting. We use narcissism is another very popular, diagnosis that we throw out there for anybody who's just acting selfishly, which we all do from time to time. Well, at least for me, I do that often. But it sounds like that's something that really struck you as a big, huge piece to go, how do I learn that? What is that going to look like within the relationship?
But of course, you have to have the awareness that, I love what you're saying, Dan, you have to have the awareness that you're not doing it.
Right.
Because you probably had no idea that this was something different because you were seeing it differently. And so then learning a new skill based on new knowledge.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good.
Right.
For you guys, so beyond empathy, which is hugely important, what are some other kind of communication strategies that you guys have learned, over the years now that have really seemed to help you guys connect better?
Yeah, I think for me, since I have therapist background, I'm about quality and outcome better than process,
Okay.
So I think sometimes some couples get caught up in what's the right way or what looks normal or neurotypical. And for me, I'm like, I want a good quality conversation or I want to come to a resolution. So Dan needs a little bit more processing time sometimes. So let's just say we needed to make a decision, and I can make decisions pretty quickly. I'm a pretty fast processor, but that's not the way Dan works, even though he's highly intelligent and a computer guy and can make business decisions pretty quickly. Relational, emotional decisions take a different type of processing.
Yeah.
So what I learned was if I was going to need an answer, let's say by Friday or Saturday, start kind of priming the pump the week before. Like there's a conversation we need to have. Here's some of the basics. What information do you need so that you can process it? Give him that information, then back off. Give him those couple of days and then kind of come back on a Thursday or Friday and say, okay, let's have that conversation. Just kind of jumping in with a lot of facts. It could be overwhelming, or he'd say, I don't have enough time to make this decision. Do you just want me to rubber stamp your decision, or do you really want me to bring something to the decision? So kind of taking that processing into time and not taking it personally that we're not going to be able to make this decision as quickly as I would like, but I want a really good decision and I want us both to be involved. So I'm going to do it in a way, cut it down into small steps so that we both can be involved in a way that's not overwhelming for either one of us.
So good.
Because Dan, right, I've heard that for someone on the spectrum, if a spouse says, "Hey, we need to talk," or we've got to make that decision, kind of like Stephanie, you were saying, that can be super overwhelming
The statement "we need to talk" is all of a sudden
right.
going to be, oh crap! What
Did your heart rate just go up? Yeah.
Panic.
Yes.
I thought I was doing okay. What the heck?
Exactly. What is
Yeah.
happening here? Yeah.
Yeah.
So, everybody process is different, but I mean, I was one that wanted to maybe over research, but I needed to know what things were, what it meant, how did it work, why is this the good way, what are the alternatives, and that's just the way it was. So it would take, I mean, we can go on vacation and I'll spend a month figuring out what things are, memorizing the map from here to there, memorizing the map of places we're not even going to go. Right. I mean, that's just,
That's how your brain
and
works.
now that
Mm-hmm.
we understand that aspect, and that's just one aspect. Now that we understand that, we plan around it and use it to our benefit. You think about what else you can do when you have a map memorized. Now you can make alternative plans on the fly. So if it rains or it's too hot, I remember this other place that's an option. We could use that as an alternative because you've already got that. That's just one aspect, and I think that bleeds into a handful of other places as a communication style.
Because sometimes it could be analysis paralysis. Because sometimes
Yeah.
with the research, he wants the best option.
Yeah.
And so it's like, we
Yeah.
might not, yes, new information may arise tomorrow, but at some time we must make a
Yeah.
decision
Right.
on what to do. So there's like this great strength of the research. And then sometimes the double edge of that sword is, okay, put the research down. You've got enough data. Let's
Yeah.
make a decision.
And so would you say, Stephanie, that's how you typically handle making a decision? As far as this is the deadline and we need to meet the deadline?
Yeah, for us, that works to say, let's kind of put it out there as to what it is and the why. For a lot of neurodivergent people, the why is very important. Just saying we're going to do it. The why, because autonomy and agency is very important for autistic people. So feeling a part of that, there's even something called demand avoidance, which that's kind of got its own thing going on. That's still under research, but kind of having that deadline that we both agreed on too. So if I'm just like, look, buddy, by Friday, we've got to do this, then it's not going to happen. But it's like, when does it feel reasonable based on when we need to do this? And we kind of set that out together. And, as long as we made it together, then he's not feeling like I'm, the boss or bossing him around. We want to do it as a partner.
Yeah. That sounds so applicable to any marriage, that we're teammates and we're going to do this together. But I love that you're specifically saying if you're married to someone that is diagnosed neurodivergent, this is a great way to approach this. How can you turn ASD strengths into relationship strengths? How does that transpire into positives for the marriage?
So I think one thing that when I was about at that mental breakdown stage about a decade or so ago, what was super important for us was, instead of thinking about how to run a house on traditional gender roles, we have to run our house as a system based on our strengths. And so in our world, it's called executive function. Who has the better executive function or strength in prioritizing or planning or money management or trip researching or finances. So you have to step back from man or woman should be doing A, B, or C. It's like, okay, let's start with who has the strengths in this first. Like Dan is the cook of our house. He does all the cooking and all the planning.
Nice.
When he said, give me one thing to do so I can remember it, I'm like, oh man, if you took cooking, I would do everything else. That feels equal to me. So we just kind of talked about, we put all the chores out on the table. Who likes doing something, who has the better skill set at it. And then when you got to the stuff that nobody liked to do, then we kind of divvy that up, or I do have better executive function. So I took that on because I wanted to versus feeling put upon. So I think that's like a huge thing for couples to sit down and do, is how can well, he's a computer systems guy and I'm a family systems girl. So looking at our family as a system, and how do we want our system to run? And what does that mean with the pieces we have to change? And let's use the strengths that we both bring to the table to figure that out. And it was kind of became problem solving.
Which is so helpful. When you guys, maybe when one of you gets burned out, around a particular chore. I mean, every couple on the planet, has the chore war, figuring out who's doing what. How do you guys typically manage going, I know that we've talked about this. I know that, I've taken this on, you've taken this on, but man, this is starting to feel like it's not a win, or I'm getting really burned out by doing this. How do you guys work through that when things just change and you've got to adapt to something that doesn't feel like a win anymore?
I'll take this one. So this is I'll try to do this quickly. We eat a lot, and that's just the way people are. 3 times a day, we like to do that. But I think
at least at minimum,
an equivalent amount of activity in a house is laundry. I don't, it. And what I caught myself in the other day was the perpetual laundry basket, and I was annoyed. Like, why is that thing still here? And I was like, the kitchen's clean. Why isn't the laundry put away? And what changed that mental narrative was, what is the goal? What do we value? And in our everyday, just the plain old everyday, you don't go somewhere fun every day, right? You have every day, I'm going to go sit on the couch and we may read a book, we may talk, we may go for a walk. That is, going for a walk together is more valuable than worrying about the laundry or whose chore is which chore. So I have a choice now. If I believe and if I am for her, and the reason that laundry is not put away is because something else showed up, there was an interruption, there was a distraction, there was a thing, then the best chance for us getting to do the thing we value is for me to do something outside of my bounds. And I could fold the laundry, and therefore I am using time. Usually it doesn't take very long. There's just the 2 of us, right? I can fold the socks, put them away, can finish the laundry basket in 5 minutes tops. And now that's one less thing to do before we get to engage in whatever that other activity was, whether it was something like going on vacation, going to a movie, or just sitting down and playing whatever game, dominoes, for instance. We play dominoes. We like to do that.
Nice.
If that's what I value, then I will work in a system and be a partner to establishing a place that we can do the thing we want to do instead of squabbling over whose chore it is.
Good. Yeah, that's a great way to handle that. Stephanie, for you, there's always, in every marriage, there's going to be a pursuer who's going to, probably pursue the connection and making sure that we're doing, whatever to keep our marriage strong. Probably in our marriage, Erin, you're more the pursuer.
Yes.
I imagine for a neurodiverse couple that there's the pursuer probably gets burned out, quickly. How have you maybe over the years learned how to manage that when you feel like you're the burned out pursuer?
So I think one of the things that helped was kind of establishing things that we can do, or we can do on our own versus, sometimes some couples think they have to do everything together. And if I'm not pursuing relationship 100% of the time, then somehow that's wrong or bad. But for us, knowing that Dan can get overwhelmed, and I have a people job. I talk from 9 to 5 every day with people in marriage.
I'm so sorry.
So
Yes.
that's difficult,
That sounds horrifying.
I feel your pain.
So I think having that down, self-care is really, really, really important for the neurotypical spouse. Not being afraid to kind of advocate for some of the things that you need, which may be, I would like to have alone time. I love to go on spiritual retreats. I thought silence and solitude retreats would be awful, but I love them. I love them so much. I love to do them. So I think self-care is important, advocating for your need, and then also not internalizing or taking things personally when the other person is overwhelmed, right? So I think if we kind of talk about, like, going back to vacation, my personality is carpe diem, suck the marrow out of every city that you go to, every day of the agenda. And that was wearing out Dan. So it'd be like, okay, let's look at this differently. We need a decompression day. Maybe I'll go do something and you stay back at the resort, and not take that personally. Take that back to, what do I value? I want a happy, not grumpy Dan when we go on vacation. Yeah. So if he wants to take a book and take 3 hours to sit in the lobby and read, then that's what he's doing to help us have a better vacation. So it's just kind of, it's constantly rethinking system, what does each person need, and being open with each other to be able to talk about that. Like, hey, I need some decompression time.
Yeah.
When he wants to barbecue, I know that's his decompression time, and I don't go outside. When he's smoking meat, that's his 6 hours alone. So
His 6
he
hours
does something.
It is 12 hours.
Okay,
alone.
12
Yeah,
hours.
I was gonna say.
Especially alone. So.
A good smoker
Wow.
would take longer than 6. Yeah. Well done.
Yes. So
All I want is now to come to your home and eat whatever Dan wants to smoke.
whatever Dan
So,
wants to make.
exactly.
We're good with that.
Well, come on.
He loves to cook for people. Give him a
Ooh.
reason.
Yeah.
Nice. So what advice would you give to a couple who's listening, or a wife or a husband that's listening, that's navigating this road? Maybe they're just beginning. What advice do you each have for them?
You want to go first?
No,
You want me to?
I
You
have
going to process?
I have
Okay.
to think.
So I think, the tagline of our podcast is "You're not alone on this journey." Even though diagnosis right now is 1 in 31 kids, which means probably there's a lot of undiagnosed adults out there.
Wow.
You can feel alone in your faith community, in your family, in the school system, that you're in. So I think finding not only another couple or a group, like we offer groups. We have just come to value groups and support groups, and getting our couples together to meet other people. And sometimes they'll meet each other even in their different states, which I think is amazing. So I think that support, having other people who are having similar experiences, but I don't want to say this too harshly, but when you get a marriage helper that does not know about neurodiversity, it is going to make it worse and not better. So you really need a coach, therapist, chaplain, clergy, somebody who is trained in autism and neurodiversity, or you're just putting the wrong paradigm, the wrong model for that couple to work for.
So helpful. So helpful.
Yeah. Dan, how about for you?
Yeah, I'll add a kind of a overarching theme on the word value. Jesus said, "Where your treasure is, there your heart will be also."
Mm-hmm.
And I would suggest everyone find out what they treasure.
Mm-hmm.
If your treasure is your train collection, how much time you spend putting puzzles together, how many maps you've memorized, then perhaps your treasure isn't God priority. And I don't mean that from an intentional and malicious way. Maybe it's just you haven't really thought about it.
Yeah.
Maybe you're not paying attention to where your time lives. And that might just need to be a refocus, because we all guard what we treasure.
Protect it.
There is no one,
advocate
right?
for it,
If
yeah.
you don't value it, you do not
Right.
guard it. I mean, that's just true. We don't put time into things we don't value. And when you recognize what you want to value, when you put it where it is, then you will guard it. And I think you'd agree that when we get into conversations with couples and coaching and things like that, what they're really at the heart of is we value two different things. When you can align on what you value and then head in that direction together, you solve so many things, because now you're a team. You're back to being a partner instead of two people living in division in the same household.
That's good.
That's so good.
It's a powerful reminder, because you're exactly right. Yeah, if we don't value something, we're not going to pursue it. We're not going to do it. We're not going to protect it. And that's just a great reminder to go, yeah, that's a good question. What do I value? What do I treasure? And just doing that from time to time, just to maybe refocus or better align what we do value. That's fantastic advice. You guys have such a beautiful relationship, in you're able to in very simple and really practical ways explain things and help people to maybe have an alternative. In what a strength! Clearly, God is using you guys as far as ministry together in this unique way, and you do such a great job. We're just so honored to have you here with us, and just thanks for the wisdom, thanks for the transparency, and man, we're just going to continue to pray that God blesses your ministry and continues to strengthen your marriage. So thanks, you guys.
Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you.
What a fun interview. I just really appreciate their willingness to be transparent, to give us great insight into their journey together through kind of learning about Dan's diagnosis and then kind of what they've done and what they've learned from that.
Yeah. And even Stephanie's willingness to talk about that she got to a dark place.
Yeah.
A really, really dark place to where she wasn't sure that she wanted to be on this earth anymore.
Yeah.
That it was that difficult, that hard. But what I took so much from what they were saying is so applicable to all marriages. Not to minimize the challenges, the very different challenges, but so many of the tools that they talked about are ones that we utilize in our marriage.
Yeah.
And, so much of we're on the same team. We got to work together to figure out something that works for both of us because we're different.
Yeah.
And within their marriage, they see the world very differently.
Yeah. I like how, although they never really used this term, it's really what they were saying the whole time was kind of this idea of an important part of making any relationship, any marriage work, especially when there's neurodivergence within the marriage, is knowledge and skills. And thinking about the knowledge part of how once they got that diagnosis, how they really dug in. What does this mean? What does this look like? Let's get the education. Let's get the knowledge. It's kind of like what's true for all of us is an ongoing commitment to learning, to developing a PhD, earning a PhD in each other, with our marriage. It's just great advice to keep learning and growing in your knowledge.
Yes, and what I love is that they were both in it together, that we've got to understand this diagnosis, and then how does it impact you individually, me individually, but then our marriage. Sometimes when there's a diagnosis, it might be like, oh, that's theirs to deal with. That's in their individual yard.
Yeah.
But really, more than likely, it's impacting the marriage and the other individual. So how do we do this as a team? How do we really go after healing and learning and growth together?
Yeah. It's a great reminder of how important knowledge is and a commitment to staying curious about each other, about our relationship. We often encourage people to take a marriage assessment. Anything like a marriage assessment,
a personality assessment.
We have a free one, and so we'll go ahead and put the link in the show notes.
Yes. Go
through something like that on a regular basis, because it just really it helps keep us fresh and updated. The other thing that really stood out to me was when Dan talked about, the verse, where your treasure is, there will your heart be also. And just the reality, if we don't value something, then our heart's not going to be in it. So we're not going to pursue it, or we're going to put it on the shelf, so to speak. Often when we think about something that's valuable, we think about each other, and we often encourage people, what is it about your spouse that you love or you value, or what are some of your favorite things about your spouse, which is a great exercise. But the one that I don't think we do enough is thinking about the marriage relationship. So I'll ask you, Erin, so when you think about our marriage, what are some of your favorite things about our marriage?
I would say off the top of my head, seeing I'm being totally put on the spot, I was actually thinking you were going to say, where your treasure is, we value. I thought you were going to talk about our new grandson.
Oh,
I
could.
Instead, we can talk about what we value about our marriage. And I would say that
I like how you slid in the fact that we just became grandparents for the first time.
I really thought that's where you were going. I was like, oh, that's easy.
Well, why don't you talk about that first?
Okay,
if
I
that'll
will
free
talk
you
about
to
him.
Answer my question.
I can't wait to get to their house tonight so I can hold him. Josiah Thomas was born Sunday, and he weighed 7 pounds, 15 ounces, and he's just perfect. He has a cute little button nose.
Proud grandmother.
He's so sweet.
What is your grandma name? Have you decided?
I haven't totally decided. Maybe Mimi, but I'm wondering if it'll end up being like Grammy or Glammy.
Something
along those lines.
Be Poppy.
Yeah, you've always been
That's
on
right.
Poppy. So
I'm a Poppy.
But you know what? How cool is that? I'll just slide that right in, that what I value about our marriage is that we get to enter into this new season of grandparenting together, that we get to explore that together. And that's a whole new chapter in our marriage and in our life.
Yeah. I love just the adventure that we're on together. Like, I don't know what's around the next bend, or will we have more grandkids? Or are we going to face some difficulty, maybe a health problem or just whatever it might be?
Yeah.
But
don't speak that over our marriage.
Well, it's a reality that we will continue to face challenges.
Yes.
And God puts that in the Bible. For those who marry, you will face challenges.
But the great news is we're a team and we're in it together, just like Dan and Stephanie were talking about.
That's what I was trying to say.
Oh, I was wrapping it for us.
So we encourage you guys, why don't you ask each other that? What are some of the things about our marriage? So again, not about the individuals.
Right.
But about the marriage relationship that we treasure, that we value.
And I really liked how Dan framed it. Like, what do you treasure? Do you think about what you treasure? And specifically with this exercise, what do you treasure in your marriage?
And we'd love to hear what you come up with.
Yes.
So go ahead and email us. We'll put the link in the show notes, voicemail. Tell us what are some of these things that you really value about your marriage relationship, because where our treasure is, there will our heart be also.
Bottom line, no marriage is easy. And when we blend our lives with another, it sometimes requires sacrifice and doing things that are against the grain and how we would usually operate in our natural tendency. But we have several resources that can help. First, we want to encourage you to learn more about Stephanie and Dan's story through their book, Embracing the Autism Spectrum. It also outlines the challenges of having a child on the spectrum and gives encouragement and hope. We'd be happy to send you Embracing the Autism Spectrum for a gift of any amount.
Yeah, we've got some great articles online as well. It's going to give you just real simple, practical tips on how to better communicate in a marriage where one spouse is on the spectrum. So we'll go ahead and throw those links in the show notes.
And remember, you can always call the Focus on the Family counseling line at 1-800, the letter A, family, FAMILY. We actually have a team of qualified Christian counselors that can call you back and talk with you about what you're going through. And then they'll even refer you to a counselor in your area.
Yeah. And maybe you know someone who has a spouse that's on the spectrum. So as a family, you're dealing with this reality. And Stephanie and Dan will be featured here later on this year on our excellent parenting podcast. So it's called Practice Makes Parent. You can get that at practicemakesparent.com. And this is our podcast here at Focus on the Family that features Dr. Danny Huerta and Rebecca St. James.
And if this episode was helpful to you, will you please let us know? Leave us a voicemail by going to our show page and then click the black tab that's on the right side. And you can also leave us an email by clicking the contact tab. We can't wait to hear from you. So please reach out.
All right, it's arts and craft time.
Ooh, I
which
like
I love,
that.
because we have a fun way for you and your spouse, or maybe even your kids, to really start to plan for the future.
And you know, you've probably heard of the term vision board. And really, vision board is something that we do. Sometimes, I don't know that guys do it frequently. I know oftentimes a group of women will get together to do this, but how awesome would it be to do this as a couple?
Yeah.
To get like magazines or pictures and you cut them out and then you tack them to a board. And it really is looking at what are our shared dreams, our goals, and what adventures we want to go on.
Yeah. And what I like about this is that it's a different way to talk about how are we planning for the future? How are we dreaming about the future? What do we want our marriage to look like in the future? Because we talk about that.
Right.
But what I love about this idea is, although I've never done a vision board, I'm extremely visual.
Yes.
And so what appeals to me is just, we've never really taken the time to go, hey, let's sit down, arts and craft time, and let's go to the store. Let's grab a bunch of magazines, make sure you include some that would be relevant to me. So I would expect a Field and Stream
Oh, sure.
magazine,
I can do
maybe
that.
a Car and Driver.
Yes.
So I can
do
really
that.
talk about my heart and my feelings. And,
Yes.
But making sure that you just have fun with it. Get a bunch
Mm-hmm.
of magazines, a bunch of varieties, and just sit down and
Mm-hmm.
begin to think about what do we want maybe the next 5 years
Mm-hmm.
to look like.
Right.
And then go through and just start individually going through some of these magazines,
Mm-hmm.
cutting out pictures or phrases, something that
Words, yeah.
represents kind of your hope maybe for the next 5 years.
Right. There's something so powerful about visualization
Yeah.
that when we see it, our brain is drawn to it. And it actually triggers something called the reticular activating system.
Wow. And
Reticular activating system.
when you
You got
start
it?
talking smart, that just turns me on. So keep going.
This part of our brain actually helps prioritize opportunities aligned with your goals and desires. So it also encourages you to take action towards what you and your spouse want. So in essence, this part of your brain is going to drive you toward what we're dreaming about together. And because we have the visualization, we're going to be seeing it over and over again. So then our brain is drawn to it. How about that?
I do love
I didn't know there was science behind vision boards.
And again, I've never done this. And so even thinking about this, I think where I got super overwhelmed is what are you asking me to do? Like, am I just going through a magazine, cutting up pictures?
Cut out pictures, and I'm going to give you a glue stick.
Yeah. Well, that
Don't eat it.
Unfortunately, that would still not help me. So
Do you hear that? Don't eat the glue stick.
I did miss that.
You remember kindergarten
I love
days?
my paste.
Yeah. But in kindergarten, it was a bowl of paste, and you just put your hand in it and then peel it off, and it tasted really good.
I'm quite certain my kindergarten teacher had to have that conversation with my parents. Like, he eats a lot of the paste. Can you work with him?
A lot of the glue is
Could
going
you
up his
feed him
nose.
more so he doesn't need to eat the paste here? So without eating the paste,
Yes.
I was thinking about what would be then some good questions that you guys could kind of begin with and maybe talk about and maybe do a vision board behind. So like one thing that stood out to me that would be fun for me if you and I started from what are 3 adventures or trips that we love to experience together?
I like that.
Because then I was thinking, what are 3 trips? Like, I'd love someday to go with you to the Holy Lands.
Right.
So that would be a fun one to kind of look for some pictures and things that would represent going to the Holy Lands.
Right.
Also thought about, I would love to go to Alaska with you on a fishing trip. And I know fishing is not your thing. It is my thing.
Right.
But what would that look like? And so, like,
I
just
would be
using that
sitting
one.
in Alaska with a cozy sweatshirt on and reading a good book.
So if we're doing a vision board about going on a trip to Alaska, what would be some pictures that you would cut out?
Me with a big sweatshirt on, reading a book.
So we could find that. We could find some cool photos.
I can imagine that I would find pictures also of fishermen and fish and, you know.
would love to eat whatever we caught.
A
'cause you
Dolly
love salmon.
Martin.
A Dolly Martin. Very
Lure.
close.
Isn't it a Dolly Martin?
There's a Dolly Varden fish that's
a
popular.
Dolly Varden fish.
There's a Panther Martin lure.
Panther
Yeah, there you go.
Martin lure. Look at me. I combined 2 major fishing
I'm
things.
telling you, man, this segment is just, I've never been more attracted to you in
do
all
you know
my
another
life.
thing
Just
we
hearing
could
you say
do?
these things.
We could brainstorm and do the vision board around what we want grandparenting to look like. What do we want to
at
do
you
with
just
Josiah?
Bringing that right back around.
Yeah. Yeah, we actually
It
talked
would.
about this. You said you're going to
How
take
about
him
if we
fishing
take him to Alaska to go fishing?
because you want to teach him how to fish.
I do.
And I
can't wait.
said, I'm taking him to the place here that is Christmas themed. It's a Christmas themed adventure park.
Oh, yeah.
I can't wait to take him there because I've had absolutely no reason to go there without a child.
I love it.
So now we have a little friend to take with us.
Exactly. So this is what we're talking about. This is how this can be super practical and really fun. But I need to know some of the questions. So
Yeah.
here's another one. What's something new that we want to try as a couple? So maybe it's a hobby, a sport, an activity. So you guys could run through those
Yes.
whatever little books, magazines.
Yeah,
and
or
cut out
maybe a
pictures.
family tradition,
Yeah.
or ritual that we really want to continue or start.
Yeah. We'll be accountable to you, okay? We'll create one around how do we want people to talk about our marriage, or what about our marriage do we want them to remember. So let's you and I sit down and
Well, I have
and
another idea.
create that one.
What if we had our marriage small group? Do vision boards together.
Oh, there you go.
And
Okay.
talk about what do we want our marriage to look like, or what do we want to accomplish? What do we want to do in our marriage in the next, 2, 3, 4, 5 years? It'd be a fun
It's a great
activity as a
idea.
group.
No? Yeah, let's do that. So Erin and I will circle back and we'll tell you how that goes and what we learned and what really stood out. But again, we know that you've got some great ideas as well. So let us know. Let us know maybe a particular theme or a question that you and your spouse used to kind of create your own vision board. Because you're a part of this podcast. You're a part of our podcast
Absolutely.
family. And we'd be happy to share your thoughts as well. So all you have to do is email us by clicking the contact tab on the top of the homepage. Well, thank you for joining us on Crazy Little Thing Called Marriage.
Yes, thank you for following the show and sharing it with your friends and family. We want you to have a seat at the table every week as we help equip you and your spouse to have a lifelong, satisfying marriage.
Yeah, we want to see you guys growing spiritually as individuals and together as a couple.
So that you can invest in other couples to help them build thriving marriages.
Well, thanks for listening. We'll see you again next Monday about this crazy little thing called marriage.